What are my patrons' top 10 whiskeys of 2024? I'm Jeff, this is G Whiskey, stick around. Okay, so I'm continuing to suckle on the engorged teat that is the holiday viewing season here on YouTube. I've got another list video, it's another Whiskey of the Year video. This time it's the top 10 whiskeys of the year according to my patrons.
Did he just start the video with engorged teat?
Yes, he did.
So this is not my whiskey of the year. It's not my list. These bottles were nominated and voted on by my patrons. And it's an interesting list because A, it's very different from last year's list. And B, there are some surprise choices in here. There's some bottles that I did not expect to show up. And since we have 10 bottles to get through today, we're going to speed run through them. I'll give you the bottles, the basic descriptions, the ABVs. For prices, because these are not my picks, we're not going to give you the cheaper Taiwan prices that I would typically pay here. Instead, I'm going with the prices that you'll find on a lot of the big online retailers. Those are more representative of like the global price, I guess. And as always, I've got a mystery pour in my glass here, but today it's not really a mystery pour. It's just the #1 pick. It's what my patrons chose as their whiskey of the year. And it's a damn good pick, so stick around to the end of the list. I'll share with you what that is. And let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into these. These are my patrons' top 10 picks of 2024. Let's go. Also leave a like. Okay, at the back of this list at number 10, we've got Lag Corey Cravey, which is not something I expected to show up here. Not that it's a bad whiskey. I've reviewed it before on the channel. I actually really like it. Lag is a pretty new distillery. They're on the Isle of Arran, and they're the same brand as Arran/Lacranza. The difference being that Lag focuses specifically on making heavily peated whiskey. And despite their whiskeys only being a few years old, so far so good. This gives us an ABV of 55%. It's peated at 50 ppm. It's a sherry cask finish. It's fully natural, non-chill filtered, natural color. The sherry cask influence gives us a lot of like fruity, red, sweet flavors. And then underneath that, we have the Lag character, which is very distinctive. For me, it's always sort of like industrial, machine oil style of peat. Really good. Now, granted, for the age, this is not a particularly cheap whiskey, but I think at the $80 price point, this does give us enough character and weight and flavor to justify grabbing because it is an excellent whiskey and it makes sense to add to the list. So coming in at number 10, Lag Corey Cravey. At number 9, we have Kilchoman Loch Gorm. Now, my patrons didn't mention any specific batch, so let's just assume the more recent ones. This is a core range annual batch release from Kilchoman, and it's damn good. Our ABV here is 46%, fully natural, matured in Oloroso sherry casks. This gives us a very sweet, thick, almost syrupy style of sherry that marries beautifully with that heavily peated distillate. And coming in at just over $105, this is an excellent, rich, full, very satisfying whiskey that I think will make a lot of the sweet peat lovers very happy. Really good stuff. Number 9, Kilchoman Loch Gorm. All right, number 8, I was not expecting, and that's just because the whiskey is so new. And listen, I don't have a lot of patrons. They're a small pool of people. I'm sure a good chunk of them still haven't had the chance to try this one, but the ones that did clearly loved it because it managed to make it onto this list already. Oban 10, the new one. This is part of Diageo's 2024 special release lineup, and it's a lineup that's not even available here in Taiwan yet. The moment this Oban becomes available, I'll be grabbing it. You guys know I love my Oban. For specs, 57.1%, and our casks are refill and freshly charred American oak casks. Apparently this stuff is in keeping with Oban's wonderful coastal house style, which is one of my favorites. It is a bit pricey at $140. The Diageo special releases are often rather expensive, but I pick up the Obans every year and I've yet to be disappointed, and clearly my patrons are not disappointed this year. So Oban 10 at number 8. At number 7, we've got another Diageo special release. We're talking about my baby, the Rosile 12. Now, I'm assuming we're talking about the 2023 inaugural release. I don't know why I'm assuming that, but I am. And this is just a banger of a whiskey, 57.5% ABV. It's been matured in first fill and refill bourbon casks. And this is one of the biggest and best surprises in the whiskey scene for me this past year. So much so that the Rosile 12 was my premium whiskey of the year for 2024. Now, in my market, since its release, it has fallen in price, but the standard international release is still going to be above $125 US. And yes, that does sound like a lot of money to pay for an unproven brand, a 12-year-old from an unproven brand. but the whiskey is nothing short of amazing, and clearly my patrons agree, so it comes in at number 7, Rosal 12. Alright, so my patron's choice for number 6 is less of a surprise than some of the previous ones. It's a banger of a whiskey. It's something I've talked about a lot on the channel. My patrons talk about it a lot. This is the Ardent American Paul Landois. Now, I've reviewed this before, and in that review, I said this is one of the best whiskeys that Ardent American has ever put out, and I still think that's true. This stuff is fully unpeated. It's bourbon matured. It's been finished in Paul Landois Champagne Barriques. The 2024 release, this is an annual release by the way, the 2024 comes in at 57.3%, and as always with these guys, it's fully natural. This is a vibrant, bright, clean, beautiful whiskey. I love the champagne cask influence here. It tastes premium, it tastes expensive, and at retail, this goes for about $85, which is an incredible deal. It's definitely worth that. It does sell out quickly though, so you have to be fast, but amazing whiskey, makes sense at number 6. Ardent American Paul Landois. Alright, at number 5, we've got another whiskey that I've never tried. I have not tried the Oban 10 that was mentioned earlier. I've also not tried this one, which is the Port Charlotte 18. This is a whiskey that I was desperate to try this year, but sadly it never showed up in my market, and I may never get the chance because it is a limited release. They only made 6,000 bottles of this, and it seems that in most markets, this is pretty much sold out. Despite the high price tag, this sold for like $230 US, which is quite expensive for an 18-year-old. For specs, we have 54.3%, mostly matured in refill sherry, with some refill French wine casks in the mix as well. Now, there was some discourse online about whether or not it was worth that high price tag, but clearly that does not matter much to the brand, as it seems like stocks are pretty much sold out across the board. And obviously, some of my patrons got their hands on it and they thought it was worth it because it's here on the list. Again, this is one I can't comment on. I haven't tried it, unfortunately, but yeah, it's number 5, Port Charlotte 18. All right, next at number 4, we have Benromic Cask Strength. Now, once again, we didn't really specify which batch when we were voting for the bottle, so just generally speaking, Benromic Cask Strength. I've had a few batches myself, and it's very good. Now, I don't follow all the batches, but I believe the latest batch is 2014 batch 2, and it comes in at 59.7% ABV, so it's not playing around. We have first fill bourbon and first fill sherry casks in the mix. And again, I've had a few of these batches, not the most recent ones, but generally speaking, it's a very consistent whiskey. It gives us a very intense, rich, sherry-forward profile. We do have some gentle peat in there, and great price tag on this one. It typically sells for around $75 US, which I think is a fantastic deal. It's worth every penny of that. I would describe this whiskey as an all-rounder with a giant pair of balls. It's another great pick, comes in at number 4, Benromic Cask Strength. Okay, number 3 was probably the biggest shock on this list. I did not expect to see this whiskey here, and that's because it's been discontinued for a very long time, or a few years anyway. They chose Longmorn 16. Now, we've had a couple Longmorn 16s over the years. I'm assuming they're talking about the more recent one in the purple box. Prior to that, it was in a green box. The purple box showed up in 2016, and it was around for, I don't know, a few years, and then it got phased out for the Secret Speyside collection. We got an 18-year-old replacement, which has now recently been phased out again. Either way, this was a beautiful whiskey. It's kind of a legend at this point. 48%, fruity, floral, complex. We had that grassy Longmorn character that I absolutely love. For price, it's tough because it's not around, so you're probably going to be paying inflated prices for this one. So, I don't know. Now, I do have a bottle here that I picked up a couple years back here in Taiwan for, at the time, 120 US, which is already higher than what its initial price was, which here was under $100. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was worth it for that. And even at $120, I'm fine with it, but I don't know how much you'll be able to find it for if you can find it at all. So good luck out there. But yes, if you can find it out there, it is gorgeous stuff. Longmorn is one of my favorite brands. They are getting a little bit posh these days, more so than I'd like, but the quality's still there, and this was a fantastic whiskey. Longmorn 16, kind of a surprise, comes in at number 3. Number 2 is not a surprise. If you watch the channel at all, you're going to be very familiar with this whiskey, Craigellachie 13. This is one that I've been on about for years. It was my first whiskey of the year on the channel, and it's probably my favorite affordable whiskey of all time. This stuff is 46%, fully natural, non-chill filtered, natural color, bourbon and sherry matured. This gets described as fruity, funky. Sometimes people call it meaty. There's grilled pineapple notes in there. It is distinctive and it's delicious. And I will continue to wax poetics about this one until the day I die. And it's also the cheapest whiskey on this list. This one comes in at $60 and it's worth every penny of that. Now, I understand why this almost made the top spot. It's a phenomenal whiskey. I've recommended it over and over again. If you haven't tried it yet, go out and grab a bottle. Craigellachie 13 at number 2. All right, number 1 is my mystery pour, and this is another whiskey that I've talked about a lot on the channel. I have been very kind to this whiskey over the years because this whiskey has been very kind to me over the years. Still love this stuff. What I'm drinking is Legic 18. This is one of the best peat and cherry combos out there. 46.3%, fully natural, bourbon matured, sherry finished. This gives us a lush, rich, sweet sherry over a base of funky peat. It's really fun stuff. And yes, this does have a certain lactic funk, but personally, I don't know anyone who finds it off-putting. I think it's very settled and integrated thanks to the 18 years in the casks. And unlike other peated 18-year-olds, yes, it's settled and integrated, but it hasn't lost its edge. It's still got some bite to it. And the best part about this one is that it remains affordable, at least as far as 18-year-old fine single malts go. This one sells for about $130 US. Granted, not cheap, but again, it's an 18-year-old and it's a quality 18-year-old. In fact, I would go so far as to say it is one of the best 18-year-olds on the market, so I think it's worth every penny of that $130. Definitely worth picking up if you've not tried it. Legic 18, it's number 1. All right, that was the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, it's not my list, it's my patrons list. And clearly, my patrons are men and women of distinguished taste. These are people who exude an air of cultivated refinement and worldly sophistication, a seamless blend of urbane elegance and insouciant grace. Their charisma is understated yet magnetic, imbuing them with an ineffable aura of ethereal grandeur and transcendental allure. And you can join them for the low price of $3 a month. Anyways, always guys, I do want to hear from you. So what were some of your favorite whiskeys of the year? What were some standouts? Let me know all that down below. I'm looking forward to reading the comments. And guys, stay tuned to this space because starting next week, we're going to have the big ones. We'll start things off with my top 5 runners up for whiskey of the year. And then after that, I'll give you my actual whiskey of the year for 2024. Exciting times. Anyway, I guess that brings us to the end of the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Here are some patrons. Here are some links for you to send me money if you choose to do that. Here is a picture of a bus that I rode last week in Taipei. It was a great ride. And here is the end screen. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.